long as Jesus Christ came to this country legally, we would let him in.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. No, thank you.
Friend of the network, Walter Masterson, is trying his best to convince MAGA that they should practice the actual teachings of Jesus instead of hijacking them to justify their bigotry.
Pretty intense.
Yeah. I feel like Jesus was kind of like a big open border socialist.
Well, that's interesting that you say that. Well, there are some things that,
Saw we thee a stranger and took thee in, or naked and clothed thee? As ye have done it unto one of the least of these, my brethren, ye have done it unto me.
While the Bible contains some of the most unhinged things you'll ever hear, it has many truly valuable and universal lessons that apply equally today as they did thousands of years ago. Religion is a tool that can be used for good, like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the Civil Rights Movement, or bad, like justifying the slave trade and manifest destiny. It just depends on who's wielding it and their intentions.
What do you think it's about?
The only thing I can say is until we get our own people under control, I'm not worried about anybody outside this country.
We were talking about immigration. There were some parts in it that I thought were like pro-immigration.
They are. Jesus was an immigrant, right? Illegal immigrant?
No, he was born in Nazareth.
It was like an anchor baby.
Raised in Egypt.
He did not apply for visas. He never came in through any country legally. If people come to our country and we don't give them home, we don't give them food, we don't give them water.
Shout out to the Jolly Good Ginger coming in at the end to put a bow on the sheer cruelty of our country's immigration system and general attitude towards immigrants and migrants. No human being is illegal, and immigration status should play no role in how you treat someone whatsoever. But that's a lot to ask out of MAGA, and sadly, far too many Dems and libs.
But we have to realize the deeper meaning behind this election. It's not just politics. This is truly evil. This is a spiritual war in our country. I'm a devout Christian. I do believe 100% wholeheartedly that we are image bearers of Christ. And so in that, we can't destroy the image of Christ in the womb, out of the womb. You look at other countries and they're doing eugenics. This is going to happen here, and abortion is just step one in that plan.
Eugenics? You mean like based on like genes, trying to get people with the same genes?
Yeah.
Did you hear Donald Trump saying 2 days ago that immigrants were people with bad genes?
I did not hear that. And I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. I would say that all immigrants, no matter where you are, no matter what race you are, ethnicity, you are created in the image of God.
It's all well and good for him to say this about immigrants as a self-proclaimed devout Christian, but what he really believes is more like, yeah, even though I disagree with Trump's thinking that immigrants aren't human beings not deserving of the same human rights and dignity as white native-born Americans, I'm still going to vote for him anyways because that's what my version of God is telling me to do. And I trust everything he tells me. The cognitive dissonance and mental gymnastics are spectacular yet so disheartening to see in real time.
Hey guys, quick break in the action. I have a new show coming out called The Rick Strom Show. It is going to be awesome. I'm interviewing musicians, athletes, producers, writers, journalists, authors, sports doctors. Go check it out at youtube.com/@TheRickStromShow. Also be sure to throw me a follow on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky. It can all be found in the description box below. Thank you.
Do you think Donald Trump is picked by God?
I believe that everyone is. Just like Joe Biden being in office, I believe that God put him there for a reason. I don't believe in coincidence, and God has everything that happens, he has planned, and he has prepared the steps.
So if Donald Trump were to lose, you'd accept the election results?
I would accept it, yeah. And I think that if Kamala gets in and our country plummets, which it will if she gets into office, I think that'll be judgment on our nation. And it's only a time for us to grow stronger in our beliefs in God, because as we can see, the world is evil. There is truly something anti-human, which is against our human nature. And so we have to realize that this is spiritual, and spiritual, the realm does exist. And so we have to realize that this isn't just all shallow like they want to make it seem.
Case in point, reducing elections and politics as a whole to a simple binary of good versus evil misses the forest for the trees. Yes, there are morally good and morally bad things politicians do and policies they advocate for, but that completely ignores the underlying reasons why the vast majority of our elected officials do what they do, money and power, which helps explain why Trump's cult of personality among Republican officials has gotten to this point.
Before you take this historic vote today, 1 week before Christmas, I want you to keep this in mind. When Jesus was falsely accused of treason, Pontius Pilate gave Jesus the opportunity to face his accusers. During that sham trial, Pontius Pilate afforded more rights to Jesus than the Democrats have afforded this president in this process.
President Trump is joining some of the most incredible people in history being arrested today. Nelson Mandela was arrested, served time in prison. Jesus was arrested and murdered by the Roman government. There have been many people throughout history that have been arrested and persecuted by radical, corrupt governments. And it's beginning today in New York City, and I just can't believe it's happening. The Democrats and the fake news media want to constantly talk about, oh, President Trump is a convicted felon. Well, you want to know something? The man that I worship is also a convicted felon. And he was murdered on a Roman cross.
No one, let alone Donald Trump of all people, should be defied and venerated to this degree. And when your leaders are saying things like this, it inevitably makes its way down to the base.
I mean, you think about Jesus Christ himself. Everybody went against him because he was preaching love and doing what was right for the people. And Trump's doing what's right for this nation, and because he's doing that, everybody is against him.
Number one, he's a godly man. He's working for God, for darn sure. Number two, he really cares about us. He cares about us. He cares about what happens to us. He cares about our country. He didn't come in there because he wanted the money. He's got money. He's coming there because he is actually working for God, and he wants to help us, and he wants to get us to he wants to make America great again, and I it's true.
I can guarantee you're not voting for Trump by just talking to you right now.
Marjorie Taylor Greene, the congresswoman from Georgia, said that Trump is as close to Jesus as anyone she's seen, that he is like, but he's being treated like Jesus. He's being treated because they're persecuting him. What do you think of that?
I think that's a fair statement. I mean, Jesus was wrongly crucified. He was like Trump. He was a fighter. He was an evangelizer, and the people back in that time and the politics of that time just wanted him out, so they got rid of him.
And Tommy Tuberville, a great coach.
Donald Trump really thought nobody would notice this.
His quarterback was named Mahomes. He was a great college coach. And I said, how good was he? He said, you don't want to know how good. He made me into a great coach. He's pretty good quarterback, right? Yeah, he was very good. He's a good guy, too.
Where do we even begin? First, let's see how Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville is going to try to spin this obvious lie.
Last question. So does this mean, since you used to coach Patrick Mahomes, that you're rooting for the Chiefs at the big game this Sunday?
Well, I never even coached him. What happened is I recruited him, and then I left and went to another school. But I've got to be very good friends with him. He's not just a good athlete. He's a very good example for a lot of our young youth across this country. Now, I like both teams. Again, I'm not a big NFL person. I like college football more, but I'll probably be pulling for Patrick this week.
Unsurprisingly, Tuberville refused to admit outright that Trump lied about their conversation and just made up Tuberville saying that Patrick Mahomes, quote, made him into a great coach, close quote, yet he still tried to give himself some credit by claiming he was recruiting Mahomes while head coach of the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Tuberville held that role from 2010 to 2012, while Mahomes didn't suit up for the school until the 2014 season, meaning that Mahomes was, at the oldest, a high school junior during Tuberville's final season in Lubbock, Texas. Just to drive that point home further, local Texas news outlet Amarillo.com covered the Texas Tech recruiting class Mahomes was a part of, reporting all the way back in 2014 that then head coach and Washington Commanders OC Cliff Kingsbury and his staff were responsible for ultimately recruiting Patrick Mahomes, as well as the departure of Baker Mayfield to Oklahoma. It's also important to note that the first season Mahomes played quarterback for White House High School was his junior year in the 2012 season, the same season Tuberville departed from Texas Tech. While it's, I guess, possible that Mahomes was immediately put on Tuberville's radar after throwing nearly 4,000 yards, 46 touchdowns, and only 9 interceptions. It is laughable for him and Trump to insinuate that Tuberville had any impact on Mahomes' rise to greatness whatsoever. The Cover 3 podcast came to the same conclusion as well.
Hey guys, quick break in the action. I have a new show coming out called The Rick Strom Show. It is going to be awesome. I'm interviewing musicians, athletes, producers, writers, journalists, authors, sports doctors. Go check it out at youtube.com/@TheRickStromShow. Also be sure to throw me a follow on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky. It can all be found in the description box below. Thank you.
Tuberville claims that he recruited Mahomes, but that's BS. And here's how we know. Tuberville's last season at Texas Tech was 2012. Mahomes was a high school junior in 2012, and it was his first year playing quarterback. He was more of like a baseball prospect at that time and had been a good safety and hooper. Under Tuberville, Tech was not recruiting Mahomes, but rather DJ Gillens, who committed to the Red Raiders in November. Tuberville would leave Texas Tech just a month later. Mahomes was not even offered by Tech until a month after Tuberville left. New coach Cliff Kingsbury had seen Mahomes while at his former job. And when Gillens decommitted to go to Wisconsin, Kingsbury extended the offer. He committed to the Red Raiders in April, had an insane senior season, and the rest is history unless you are Tommy Tuberville and are trying to rewrite history.
Shout out to Cover 3 for posting this breakdown nearly 2 years ago to the date, while this blatant lie ranks near the bottom of Trump's never-ending list of falsehoods. It perfectly shows the lengths he and the MAGA movement are willing to go to project an image of success and power to hide their insecurities. Either Tuberville lied to Trump and pretended about recruiting and coaching Mahomes, or Trump completely fabricated this conversation altogether. Both outcomes are hilariously pathetic and entirely delusional. But when you're that insecure about the image you're projecting out to the world and desperately need to be perceived as an almighty strong man, this is the type of lies you'll hear. Now, recall this.
I actually like Mrs. Mahomes much better, if you want to know the truth. She's a big Trump fan. I was not a Taylor Swift fan. It was just a question of time. You couldn't possibly endorse Biden. You look at Biden, you couldn't possibly endorse him. But she's a very liberal person. She seems to always endorse a Democrat, and she'll probably pay a price for it in the marketplace. But no, I like Brittany. I think Brittany's great. Brittany got a lot of news last week. She's a big MAGA fan. That's the one I like much better than Taylor Swift.
And this.
Make America great again. Let's do it.
While Patrick has been much more guarded and secretive about his politics, his wife and mother haven't had any problems showing their true colors and being showered with praise from the fascist in office, which leads us to this.
I don't know if you saw the clip yesterday, but President Trump described you as a pretty good winner. I just wondered what you thought about that and how it's going to feel to play in front of him on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, it's always cool to be able to play in front of a sitting president, someone that is at the top position in our country. And so I didn't see that clip, but obviously it's cool to hear that he's seen me play football and respects the game that I play.
Patrick recently gave one of his typical diplomatic answers to a question involving Trump during his Super Bowl media tour. And while you shouldn't expect him to get political, it's disappointing nonetheless to see the face of the entire sport and a global athletic superstar brush off Trump as just another president who doesn't pose an existential threat to hundreds of millions of people both inside and outside of the United States. And as for one of MAGA's many public enemies,
that's awesome. It's a great honor. I think, no matter who the president is, I know I'm excited because it's the biggest game of my life, and having the president there, it's the best country in the world, so it'd be very cool.
Travis Kelce also dismissed Trump's fascism and played off his attendance at the upcoming Super Bowl just like Mahomes. It should never be a, quote, great honor, close quote, in Kelce's words, to entertain someone as deplorable as Donald Trump. But when the threat he poses doesn't affect you, it's much easier to ignore his impact. Joy Taylor has been in the news for many reasons, but one may not have seen this coming. She took a not-so-subtle shot at the president-elect Donald Trump. After a segment on the Kansas City Chiefs' Patrick Mahomes, with the topic being if he wins a third straight Super Bowl, how does it affect his legacy, Taylor would say this. First things first, let's recognize her co-hosts, that being Basketball Hall of Famer Paul Pierce and former number one pick, 10-year NFL pro Keyshawn Johnson from Mediaite. Here's how it went down. Taylor would argue that should Mahomes and the Chiefs seal a victory over the Bills, they could be in the same regard as Tom Brady and the Pats during their dynasty. She would emphasize that those conversations are premature until the Chiefs pull off the NFL's first ever three-peat. So basically, Keyshawn would hear this and would say it's okay to jumpstart those conversations. It's totally fine no matter what happens as a result of the 2024 playoffs. Joy would obviously disagree and then utter the following line, which caught a lot of people's attention. I mean, you could talk nonsense if you want to. It's a free country for a couple more days. This was prior to the inauguration, of course. And I think what it puts in perspective is how much she despises Donald Trump and how I am also okay with it, especially on Fox Sports, of all places. But there would be another topic that came up.
Hey guys, quick break in the action. I have a new show coming out called The Rick Strom Show. It is going to be awesome. I'm interviewing musicians, athletes, producers, writers, journalists, authors, sports doctors. Go check it out at youtube.com/@TheRickStrom Show. Also be sure to throw me a follow on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky. It can all be found in the description box below. Thank you.
And as of today, TikTok is back. But I said we need to save TikTok because we're talking about a tremendous... Who in this audience goes with TikTok? Many? Yeah, very popular. And frankly, we have no choice. We have to save it. A lot of jobs. We don't want to give our business to China. We don't want to give our business to other people. And I said, you know, TikTok without my approval, meaning the president's approval, because Congress gave the president the right to make a deal, do whatever he wants. And they did that a long time ago when they had a different president. They didn't know that I was going to be the president, I guess. So I said, very simply, a joint venture. So if TikTok is worth nothing, zero, without an approval, you know, if you don't approve, they're out of business, they're worth nothing. If you do approve, they're worth like $1 trillion. They're worth some crazy number. So I said, I'll approve, but let the United States of America own 50% of TikTok. I'm approving on behalf of the United States. So they'll have a partner, the United States, and they'll have a lot of bidders, and the United States will do what we call a joint venture.
Okay, this is all BS. And you know who called it out? Joy Taylor on Instagram. She'd referenced this article, which was posted by NPR in August of 2020. The writer is Bobby Allen with a Y. The headline reads, Trump signs executive order that will effectively ban use of TikTok in the U.S. She would caption it this: make a problem, let people forget you started it, take credit for fixing a problem you created to make yourself look good. We are embarrassing. Yeah, we are. There's a few things before we proceed. First, she is right that this is a problem that he created. He was the one who called for the banishment of this app because of the boogeyman that is national security concerns. And I'll get to national security concerns in a second from a sitting member of Congress. But let me also be clear about something. Fascists create a problem that only they can solve.
Number one, they said it's a national security issue. It's a national security issue. I said, okay, that's serious. Let's see the case. Let's see the intelligence. Let's see what's going on. I can tell you that what was presented to all of the members voting on this thing was not very compelling. Like, there was no real information that was given that was a smoking gun, that was anything specific. It was very vague, not convincing, and frankly, it was not convincing to many other members as well. In fact, very high-ranking members on the House Foreign Affairs Committee came to me after the briefing, and they were very shocked and pretty surprised at the lack of substantive information in the briefing. They were genuinely expecting there to be some real or compelling intelligence shared that would substantiate the argument. And there just wasn't. And they were surprised at the lack of information presented at it. And then also, additionally, this bill, which is very large and substantive, like in terms of its impact, came to the Energy and Commerce Committee. It was marked up and it was brought to the floor like in a matter of, 1 or 2 weeks. I'm trying to remember, it was just a few weeks, which is very, very fast. Very. Additionally, the degree to which corporations surveil the American people without genuine consent and without real mechanisms for opting out should be illegal, point blank, period.
Awful announcing, we'll put a bow on it. As for how we got here, it's worth noting that Trump's initial attempted ban of the platform due to those, in quotes, national security concerns never even had a lot of teeth, with former President Joe Biden signing an executive order of his own, negating it after taking office months later. Efforts to ban it, however, would reemerge when Congress passed a bill that banned it completely in the U.S. unless it divested from ByteDance, which also goes to show how much of a facade the argument of free market capitalism is to Republicans, and, to an extent, many, many Democrats. Yeah, pick you up by your bootstraps. Yeah, this country values a free market economy unless they don't have a stake in it. Let's be clear. We will allow you to become a billionaire unless you support us. That's all that this is. And I'm really curious to see, because of what we saw from the platform when it was shut down, how they thanked President Trump for his efforts, even though he's the one who wanted to ban it, and then thanking him again when the app came back. The brown-nosing that was going on. My God, what did you guys allow him to do? What stake did you allow him to buy? How does he benefit? What deal did y'all broker for you all to suck up to him the way that you did? The most used app in the world, social media app in the world, thanked him twice. It reminded me of when Americans had to wait to get their stimmies because Trump wanted his signature on them. Damn, it's disgusting, man. Politics is gross. They would go on as Trump's second inauguration approaches. SCOTUS unanimously upheld the ban, further cementing the likelihood of it becoming unavailable. Trump, who has since become an advocate for it, where he's grown increasingly popular in the time since his first term. That is true. He left with an abysmal approval rating. He signaled that he would take steps to keep the app available, which the platform noted in their messages. From Ban Axelrod, TikTok was available, blah, 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 which included plans to sign an executive order delaying the ban. So that's the other thing. He's probably going to ask for more, or a deal has already been worked out. According to NBC News, Trump said he would like the U.S. to have a 50% ownership position in the joint venture to keep it alive in the country. Again, what deal did they broker? Because I believe it has already been completed.
If you can and are willing, please become a paid member here at TYT Sports, and or go to tyt.com/join. In addition, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Appreciate it. Have a great day.